The Merriam-Webster definition of horror is a painful and intense fear, dread, or dismay. There have been hundreds of horror movies from the genre's conception, and very few of them have filled me with a feeling that I could equate to the Merriam-Webster definition of what horror actually means. I've been watching horror movies since I was very young. My first ever horror movie being The Exorcist, the original one. Ever since then, horror movies have hit my bloodstream like this sort of gateway drug. I have Googled scariest movies ever made more times than I can admit, wanting to find a movie scarier than the last. I've scoured the internet hundreds of times in a desperate attempt to feel the painful and intense dread that the feeling of horror boasts to provide, and many times I have failed. And I have something a little bit pretentious to admit. In the year of 2025, I had believed that horror had finally hit its ceiling for me. After the initial era of experimental A24 and other art house horror films like Midsommar, Hereditary, Men, and Beau is Afraid, I had believed that I was never going to find another movie that actually unnerved me ever again. Those were some of the last films that I had ever seen that genuinely scared me, but their artistic, metaphorical, and even beautiful A24 trademark style even still held me just short of being genuinely horrified. To summarize all of this, I have searched high and low for a movie that horrified me in the way that The Exorcist horrified me when I was a little girl. Sometimes it even feels like I'm this kind of addict, craving a harder and harder substance, a scarier and scarier movie. And no matter what I watch, I just cannot get my fix when it comes to horror. I can say with 100% confidence that since the year of 2023, I have not seen a movie that genuinely scared me. In the least. Sure, I still love them, and I still go to the theaters and watch them, but I've had to settle in my seat and accept the fact that I'm not going to be horrified. I'm not going to this movie to feel genuine fear. I'm going to enjoy the spooky storytelling, the acting, and overall just for fun, but I'm probably not going to be scared. That was the exact expectation I had when I settled into my seat to watch Danny and Michael Phillipou's newest movie called Bring Her Back. And to my delight and surprise, what I experienced was the feeling of horror and dread I have been chasing for years. Danny and Michael Phillipou's freshman film released in 2023. It was called Talk to Me, and lots of people I know revere it as one of the best and scariest horror movies they have ever seen in their life. While I do admit that the film was great and very spooky, this again was one of the films that I had hoped would terrify me but just fell a little bit short. I praised it for being a clever allegory for societal peer pressure in teen life and teens experiencing trauma, and an allegory for party drug use in the teenage community, and presenting those concepts in a way that only a certified horror buff could ever do. But ultimately, and especially in the scare department, I felt like the movie had room to grow. I recognize that this is a harsh opinion, and I blame it fully on how infatuated I am with the horror genre and how jaded I have become to it. And 2023's Talk to Me was an excellent film, but it still fell short of the horror I was craving. 2 years later, David and Michael Phillipou released Bring Her Back, and I can gladly say that this is the most terrifying and well-written horror movie I have seen hit the big screen in my entire life. This is the scariest movie I have ever watched in theaters. Writing a spoiler-free review is actually very, very challenging because there are so many scenes that genuinely horrified me, confused me, angered me, sickened me, and made me emotionally distressed. The love and fear that I had for the characters in this film felt genuine and real, which brings me to the characters themselves. Firstly, the female protagonist is a young blind girl named Piper, played by Sora Wang. Wang supposedly had zero experience acting professionally before this film, and the way she was casted was that her and her mother came across a Facebook ad looking for a visually impaired girl to play in a film. Holy shit. This kid acted her heart out. If I were a conspiracy theorist, I would almost refuse to believe that this was her first ever film. A lot of times with younger actors, you get this kind of M. Night Shyamalan, Disney Channel type line delivery that rings wrong in your ears and takes you out of the movie. And that's something I kind of expect and have frequently experienced in the realm of horror. This actress is on a completely different level, especially when you compare her to other freshman actresses her age. Wang brought a sense of fluidity to the character that I was not prepared for. Piper's character was realistic, fiery, and polished. She felt like a real person, and I'm absolutely in love with that character. The male protagonist, and arguably the main protagonist, was an older teen boy named Andy and stepbrother to Piper. This character is played by Emmy winner Billy Barrett, who had won an Emmy at just 13 for the BBC original show Responsible Child. The chemistry between these two is absolutely undeniable and unbelievable. In the film, Andy and Piper may have been step-siblings, but their relationship was so beautifully realistic that despite their differences, I could have 100% believed that they were 100% siblings just by the way that they acted. Billy perfectly encapsulated the energy of a teenage boy who is learning how to be a grown-up, and their performance together was beautiful. Then there is a supporting character, a kid named Oliver, that I cannot tell you anything about other than he is played by Jonah Wren Phillips, and he is genuinely terrifying. This kid is the kind of character that you have night terrors about. And not only was he terrifying, he was also tragic. There was a moment in the film that I was so impressed with his acting ability that I literally made a note of it. Almost genuinely feel like he should be nominated for some kind of award for this scene. And his performance may have been terrifying, but he was so much more than just your typical haunted, weird, spooky child trope. He was a prisoner to his captor, he was a prisoner to himself, and he was a monster all rolled into one. It was a crazy role. And finally, last but not least, there is the actress Sally Hawkins, who plays the character of Laura. Hawkins is most notably known for The Shape of Water and the Paddington movies, so seeing her play a true antagonist was a real treat. Especially because she brings one of the most infuriating, disgusting, vile, and nauseating characters ever written to life on the screen. Oh my god. Holy shit. Critics wrote that this was one of the most original horror films of all time, and I cannot agree with them more. Horror movies are often broken down into subgenres like psychological horror, gore horror, paranormal horror, found footage horror, and crime horror. Bring Her Back utilized every single one of these genres, and I'm not exaggerating. All of the genres I just named, Bring Her Back harmoniously rolled all of these genres up into something that felt completely new. My hope for the horror genre has been restored because of this film. There were scenes that sickened me and disgusted me that in no way had any gore or jump scare aspect. In fact, some of the scenes that unnerved me the most to a regular audience may seem a little bit bland, but there were some deliberate choices that were so rough that could have been sensitive, that the directors just took in a way that made me sick. Without spoiling the movie, very, very early in the film, there is one particular scene that may not even be intended to be a horror scene, but the sound design had a kind of thump to it, and this thump was repetitive, and the first thump made my heart kind of just jump a little bit, and then the second thump made me a little bit sick, and every time this thump happened, I was becoming nauseous. The way this movie was able to manipulate me is actually scary. Watching this movie at the theater was an indescribable experience, but if I had to describe it, the best way that I can was that it's a unified, visceral reaction. Bring Her Back does not use cheap antics that you'll find in your typical Conjuring or your typical Insidious movies like building swelling soundtracks, jump scares, or giant creepy movie monsters. And despite the fact that most of the scenes were pretty mundane at a glance, I was fighting the urge to keep burying my face in my husband's shirt. I found myself multiple times pulling up my knees to my chest and feeling like a little kid again, watching a scary movie for the very first time. I'd get so embarrassed for reacting to the horror with genuine reactions and saying fuck and shit in the movie. And I was like, am I being a baby right now? And I'd look around and I'd see all the people in the theater doing the exact same thing I was. And what was unique about this theater experience is because there weren't very many people there, you could tell that most everyone in the room was a genuine horror fan. And you look around and you see that they are doing the same thing. They're curled up in balls. One lady had her hoodie over her face with the strings tightened, peeking out of the tiny little hole. And people were cussing and jumping and turning away. It was one of the most genuine horror experiences I've experienced in a theater, and it was beautiful because it was such a unified experience. By the end of the film, every single person in that theater's jaw was on the floor, and nobody fucked around with leaving. As soon as the credits showed up on the screen, every single person in that theater stood up and walked out. I was able to overhear some moviegoers' reactions to the film to see if they liked it as much as I did in the hallway and near the restroom of the movie theater, and every single person that I recognized being in that theater with me all had the same consensus. They were all chattering about it, and they almost all said that that was the best horror film they had ever watched. How this film was able to achieve such genuine reactions, genuine scares without jump scares or a giant looming creepy movie monster with a scary monster design, it's beyond my understanding. I would love to delve into the psychology of this film. And usually when you hear this movie doesn't use jump scares, this movie doesn't use movie monsters, this movie doesn't use scary music, you immediately think that this film is going to be pretentious, it's going to be an art film, it's going to be a psychological horror film. That turns a lot of people away. This wasn't that either. This was something completely different. I have no critiques for this film. The only thing that even mildly upset me about it was that how infuriating and upsetting the ending was. But I still stand by the fact that I think that the directors and the writers made an excellent choice, and that was the appropriate ending for this movie. So I can't even really complain about it. Bring Her Back is so cleverly and expertly crafted that it makes Talk to Me, which Talk to Me is a highly venerated film, by the way, loved by critics and fans alike. Talk to Me looks like a garage band cover of a movie in comparison to Bring Her Back. If you liked Talk to Me, this is going to be a treat for you because it makes Talk to Me look like an experiment. After watching this movie, I almost think that the Phillipou brothers made Talk to Me to see what the audience could handle. I could not be happier with this film. Bring Her Back was excellent. I fully plan on doing a deep dive into this film that gives plenty of spoilers within the next few weeks, so if you were interested in that, I would really encourage you to either leave a comment or hit that subscribe button so that you can stay updated on that if you enjoyed this film review. In the meantime, my name is Melody and this channel is called Melody Ever After. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, what's stopping me from seeing you in the next one? Until next time!